are, Renee, with a guest. Tell me who we're talking to today and what's going
Oh
on.
my goodness, we're talking to one of my new friends, Daryn. She and I have met now. I don't even remember how many years ago now, but it's been a minute and become better and better friends along the way. And she's a delightful person who works at NAMI National and is willing to come and chat with us. I'm just so excited. I can't wait for this conversation. We're going to talk specifically about the provider program, but Daryn is an expert in all things NAMI and teaches lots of things. So she's got so much knowledge. I'm just excited she's here. But before we dive into that, Jason, what in the world's going on the farm here in November? I mean, it's almost Thanksgiving. Are you done with like crops and stuff or what?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, this is the time of year we reflect and it's cleaning up everything before winter. And so, we always
Yeah.
have a few gallons of leftover nutrients or chemicals. They come in big totes, like they're 250-gallon totes. It's like a big cage with a plastic bladder in it. So those have to be put inside and I'm a poor farmer. I don't have a heated shop, Renee. So this is where you need to feel sorry. That's my whine.
Um,
I don't have a heated shop. But I've got 8 of these totes that have to go into a warm storage somewhere. So they have to be hauled to my brother-in-law's because he has a warm shop. So we got to forklift stuff up and then take it there and then get a skid loader with forks, unload it, and then hand cart truck it into the heated area. It's just a lot of work, Renee. That's just
yeah.
farming.
Yeah. I've seen Jason's shop. He was kind enough to let my nephew come out and quote farm with him one year and it's full of a mess, Jason. You'd have a lot more space in there for a lot more things, even in the
Well,
heated
it's not
portion.
heated. If it was heated, I'd spend the winter cleaning it up, Renee. But it's not heated,
Right.
so stuff kind of does stack up a little bit now and then, I admit.
Yeah. We know how this goes. Well, today we're
It's
going to talk and do a deep dive.
5 generations of treasures in there, Renee. Just remember that.
That's the word you choose. Your wife and I would call it something else. We know. 5 generations of stuff. Today, though, we're going to talk about Provider. And this is a program that Jason and I both teach with NAMI, and we love it and we really enjoy it. And we've been doing it for a number of years now, but we've never really gone into a deep dive about it and kind of talk about like, how did we get here and where did Provider come from and why in the world are we kind of one of the leading states in this area and all the things that's going on here in Iowa. So we're bringing in Daryn. So I want to introduce Daryn Nelsen-Soza. She's from NAMI National, like I said at the beginning. But if you may not know her, that NAMI is for the National Alliance of Mentally Ill, and it's a program that I've been a lobbyist for in the past here in Iowa. I've volunteered for in the past. I do their walks on a regular basis. I really, really love this organization. And she gets to work at the national level, which is exciting to me. But she and I have worked alongside each other doing this class provider now since it started at Des Moines University. And that's been now, I guess, 8 or 9 years ago. I always lose track of how many years back. But that was the first time I met Daryn, and we started talking then. And since then, we've become friends and still get to chat. And even though we don't live anywhere close to one another, it's always fun when I get her online. So, Daryn, welcome to our show today. So grateful that you're here. And could you tell our audience a little bit more about you? I mean, what got you to NAMI National and who are you?
Wow. Wow. That's a great question, Renee. First and foremost, I am the oldest daughter of a farmer. So I totally understand 5 generations of treasures
Uh-huh.
in the unheated shop. I totally get that. Um,
Yep.
my dad's gone now, but my close friends often comment that, once a farmer's daughter, always a farmer's daughter. So
Yep.
it is what it is, right? So I grew up on a farm in Eastern Washington, wheat, barley. We had some cattle, always had horses, chickens, cows, all bunnies, all of that kind of fun stuff growing up. But when I was growing up, I also had some major depression going on and didn't have anybody I could talk to. So part of what has led me on this journey to get me to NAMI National is my internal yearning for better systems around mental health care, specifically in the rural communities, which is where my heart is, but then also on the national level where I kind of sit on that platform now. Honestly, my coming to work for NAMI National was a total fluke. I was speaking to the chief programs officer one day and said, I think I'm going to resign my position at the federally qualified health center, and she asked me what I was going to do. And I said, I don't know. I can do just about anything. I'm pretty resilient. And I said, but you know what? It's the first time I'd ever said this. You know what? My dream job would be to come to work for you at NAMI National. And she went, really? What program would you want to work on? And I said, well, provider, of course. Long and short, 6 weeks later, I started with NAMI National. So be careful what you put out there in the universe. it might come back. So I've been with National for 3 years and do NAMI Provider. We just went through a great update of the materials. I also work with another program called Hearts and Minds. I don't know what else you want to know. I'm a licensed social worker in Washington and Oregon. I have a small private practice. I've been doing community-based counseling, support, mental illness training for over 30 years, but I came to NAMI in 2014. I was working on my MSW, so it's all come full circle. Some people would say I drank the Kool-Aid.
I like it. Thank you so much for being here. It's been so fun to get to know you. And so, yeah, Provider. So you came in to Provider. So it already existed. Remind me when Provider was created. Like, how many years back did this program start? Because we're a big adopter in Iowa, but it was before we had it in Iowa, though in other states it's been going for a long time. So I know, like, it's been in South Carolina for a long, long time. So how long back did it go, like that original version?
The original version was a 30-hour class, and I think it was started or written in like 1995, 96.
Hmm.
So it's been around for a while, gone through several reiterations from a 30-hour class to a 15-hour class, and now a 4-hour seminar. We'll get into more of the details, I'm sure, as we talk about Provider. But yeah, it's been around for a long time. It's based off the evidence-based programming of Family to Family that was written by Joyce Berlin years and years and years ago. It's one of NAMI's signature or national program education programs that we support on the national level. So it's been around for a while, growing and
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah. So we now
Well,
have
why don't we
the.
not keep our listeners in
Good.
suspense and give us a
Yeah.
high level, what is NAMI Provider? Because I'm sure there's people listening right now going, I want to know, because not everyone, I know we think everyone should know NAMI's signature core curriculums and trainings and initiatives, but Daryn, not everyone knows. And so I think it's a great opportunity to help people know, understand what is the goals of Provider and who does it target, and what is this program Provider?
That's really great questions. I'll get back to you on that. No, seriously, NAMI Provider is it's a program, a staff development program for healthcare providers, your administrative staff, operational staff, any collaborative models of working with just the individual, but with their families as well. It has helped kind of do some stigma busting as we begin to talk about, a medical provider that gets maybe one semester of behavioral health, mental health training, and then they're thrown out into the world that is filled with people like me. And how can we help them to be able to serve their individuals and family in a collaborative manner with more confidence? We address burnout, we address some co-occurring issues that kind of complicate recovery, but it's really designed to help folks understand or have a deeper understanding and confidence around the issues of mental health. NAMI Provider is a peer-led group, a training. We have an individual in recovery who shares their story. We also have a family member of an individual with a mental health condition who can share their perspective. And then, of course, we have a mental health professional who either has a family member or is a person in recovery themselves. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a lot. But the part I love the most about it are those voices of people who with lived experience, the family members of lived experience, and then providers who have family who've also lived it, because it is different than being a person who has no connection to someone with mental illness. You just have a very different perspective. And that really is the part that I love the most about this program, because you're not teaching providers what they're already taught in school. They already know a lot of things. They're already really brilliant in many cases, but it's that personal interaction portion that they may not ever see. And to be fair, a lot of our mental health providers only see people at their worst when they come in crisis. And so they don't get that full picture of how maybe their actions impacted someone for good or for bad. They don't ever get to see the follow-up of that. They just saw the crisis intervention piece and then never get the rest of the story. And it's been my favorite part as we work with providers for the light bulbs to go on about, oh, this is how their brief interaction impacted somebody for good or for bad. And it's really, really impactful. So Jason, did you have another thought on this before we dive into more on Provider itself?
No, I mean,
Why did
I
you
think we're
start
going to get
teaching,
to it.
Jason? Why'd you start
I
teaching?
think it was your fault, Renee. I think I'm jumping ahead to story time I see on the agenda here, but I think you kind of drug me into it. And we had done some work supporting our local state NAMI chapter. I think NAMI does such great work, not only nationally, but each state and each local chapter. And I think we were working with NAMI, and in our state, we actually helped NAMI to get a contract where they trained
Oh, yeah.
provider on a really large scale at all of our state institutions. And so when we think about fighting stigma, training individuals, it was a really great opportunity. So not only did we have the opportunity to train at DMU in those medical professionals, healthcare professionals before they go on to other aspects of their education, but looking at the statewide training that NAMI Iowa did, which I think was really innovative. It still is really innovative of how to take something that's evidence-based, that's had all this work and effort put into it, and deployed on a large scale. And so it took a lot of people to do that, if you recall, Renee.
I remember. Yeah, and so I think about Iowa, and I mean, we've really think about deployment, right? We've really put this out in a lot of places. So Des Moines University, for those listening, all third-year students going through Des Moines University to be physicians, they're typically going to be a doctor of osteopathy at the end of the rainbow. Every last one of them has to go through provider, the long course. And then this particular program that Jason was mentioning, we took it to every Health and Human Services agency, institution, I would say institution that HHS needed, and they had contracted with NAMI to come into every single institution, and that was on every shift at every institution. So we had the day staff, the night staff, and everything in between. And so that would include your frontline cooks, it would include your janitors, it would include everyone that came in contact with clients throughout the buildings were all included and all trained as well. I'd really love to get it into the corrections facilities. I don't have that here in our state yet, but man, with the numbers of people, they seem to have a disconnect that they don't think there's as many folks with mental illness in our prisons as is reality. And so they don't see the need so far, but wow, would that be a difference maker too. So, we've got some dreams, and I always talk about even just bringing it to the parole board would be massive, because when we interview people, I don't know if Daryn's heard this one, but I end up with folks that are actively psychotic sometimes in interviews, which is crazy to me. They have to be competent to stand trial to get to prison, but then they're allowed to decompensate if they want to. But they come to the parole board where they're supposed to be signing information about the future of their life and understanding what they're doing, but they don't by law have to be competent to do that. So they come to me in an incompetent state, which makes no sense. And then my board doesn't know what to do with that because they're not mental health providers. And so it's just this ongoing situation. And so provider could be really helpful in that particular instance. And so I've been thinking about how to make that happen and get that paid to be done in my community. So, but let's think about those numbers. I mean, I know I have my incarceration numbers are really high. They estimate maybe 50 to 75% of folks have a mental illness of some condition. It's probably higher than that. Once you include substance use, it's really high. But what are some of the other data of what we're seeing? Because the need is great for what we're doing. It's really big.
You bring up corrections, Renee, and I think that's a really, really valid place for this program to be. If you think that nationwide, 1 in 4 adults have some kind of touch with mental illness, and if we take folks and put them in jail, it stands to reason that still 1 in 4, if not higher, are incarcerated, which breaks my heart. Our prisons shouldn't be our mental health support system. But don't get me on that soapbox. The beauty of provider is that it can be modified to fit your audience. So if you're talking to corrections or police officers or school nurses and social workers and teachers, we can modify the language to fit that group. We don't necessarily change content, but instead of saying provider, maybe, we say service provider or law enforcement if your group is all law enforcement. So there's some flexibility within the program that I think makes it a versatile and valuable tool across the country.
Yeah, and the newest version has case studies that are 4 different topics. I'm going to get them wrong because I know I just got to see them brand new, but you remember the 4 off the top of your head, Daryn? Because there's 4 different ones.
I do. There's a clinical, which is for your mental health workers. There is law enforcement, which is law enforcement from sheriffs to corrections officers to parole officers court services. So our judges, our court support services. I have a friend who works in the court here as a crime victims advocate. She would be great for that training. And then there's youth support services. So the schools, the social workers, the here in Washington, we call them resource officers, the police officers who are on campus. So those are the four that we have right now. I'm currently in the process of writing a fifth one that's more designed towards nursing students. So Grandview in Iowa is also mandating that their nursing students take the long version of Provider, and that's kicking off this fall. So I'm pretty excited about that. We've worked out a case study, and I'm just plugging it in the materials to get to them to get started with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting.
I'm hoping in the future that we have, I don't even know if Provider is really the best title for this course anymore, because we've kind of blown the doors off of who we present to. But I'm hoping we can get one that's kind of focused on clergy, those pastoral counselors, pastors, priests, imams that also on a daily basis engage with individuals with mental health conditions. I'm thinking, our veterinarians deal with us on really rough days, right? Sometimes when we have to make those horrible decisions about our pets, and how this class could help prepare them a little bit better to help us through, the pain of going to the vet, maybe even just paying your vet bill sometimes can make you cry. But pharmacists, I just think the sky's the limit on what we could do.
Could you paint a picture of why Provider is such a different training than all the other, because there's a whole bunch of mental health trainings out there for professionals, and there's some key elements that make Provider really different, at least from all the other trainings, because I teach at all the other ones as well, it seems like. But Provider is unique in that team training concept. Do you want to talk to us about how important it is that Provider is personalized? Like every training, although this is evidence-based and a standardized curriculum, it's still personal. Tell us how it got to be that, Daryn, because I think that's really unique. And there's not many trainings that can capture that and deliver it really well.
Right. Renee had said it earlier about the peer kind of voice that's in there, and we don't normally get to see people when they're in recovery. I know from my own journey, I never once heard about recovery. I never once heard about there's hope for you to stand on your own 2 feet and be able to face your demons, take your medication, do your therapy, do the work that you need to do. Nobody ever told me that. So when I learned that, it was like an eye-opening. I remember my brain kind of going zzz as it rewired to go, I don't have to live in this chaos. This works. So nobody ever talked to me about that. And I think one of the beauties of Provider is taking the content, which is data driven, and doing the lecture piece on the data and the information that we want to share. And then each of the presenters coming in and adding their story, their real, true life, heartfelt experience that they had with either themselves or their loved ones. I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it, that I think it's the personal stories that is the magic of any of the NAMI programs. And we have NAMI to Family, which is, families of individuals who have mental illness coming together. We have Basics for parents with kids. We have Homefront for our veteran families. We've got a lot of different programs going on, but it's the stories that make the difference. And having people being willing to get up in front of scary doctors, scary mental health workers, and say, hey, I'm a 64-year-old woman who has major depressive disorder, PTSD, and oh, by the way, I'm also a mental health professional. That's kind of hard to say, but when you get into the material and you hear my story, it triggers something in your brain. And I won't get into the brain science on it, but it triggers those neurotransmitters in your brain. And it's like it takes that information from your head, what you just heard, down into your heart, where you can really have empathy and compassion for the individual sitting in front of you. So I love that about Purple. That's the magic, the stories.
Yep. And the one thing that I know that when we teach it this way too, is it's not just the stories that put maybe the providers in the bad light. It is the next piece that's like, and this is what you could have done to make that better for me. So there's this piece where people with real life experiences says, this is what I needed in that spot. This is what could have helped, because we're all talking helping professionals and everybody's thinking they're helping. That's what they're not going out every day going, let's go see how many clients' lives I can screw up today. That's not what they're doing, but they don't understand that it's not maybe coming across the way that they intend. So giving them those other ideas is really impactful. And then the other piece with the colleges that's so interesting is so many of them have so much anxiety and depression themselves. That's such a tough road of education for those young students, and for them to see people in front saying, I'm a professional that have these issues too, and they want to be a professional and they know they have those issues. Watching those light bulbs go off is really impactful, because they get to share in a safe space about maybe their own journey toward chronic stress, toward burnout that is happening as they're trying to finish residency, as they're trying all the things that we all know is really, really stressful. And these young people are trying to go into a profession that's not easy to do in many cases in these universities. Nursing is not easy. Any of those medical fields, not easy. And so for them to be able to realize that you can talk about it and that you can share, that's been really enlightening for me. It's just watching them put some pieces together. So even sometimes what I get out of teaching it is not what I think I'm going to get out of teaching it. I watch the room and I'm like, wow, that was really a cool conversation. I would not have expected that, or never heard those thoughts, or it's just amazing. So yeah, I think that really is the different part. So some people may be listening going, why would I want to do a teaching about stories? That doesn't sound like something my professionals would need to do. Not like this. You haven't seen it like this, because the context is there. And the other one I always see the light bulb go on is when doctors are always frustrated nobody will take their meds. But that part, when people start telling their story about their medications, the doctors are like, oh, and so you can just see it. And it lands every single time you get to that point. And I'm just like, okay, this is totally worth it. If they walk away and realize it's not a battle about taking medication, there's other issues involved that we need to talk about. It just renegotiates that entire situation. It's magical. I just so important.
Yeah, that's so important. And it's the piece that they don't get in their academic training,
No,
right? We're not
no.
teaching them about what schizophrenia is or what depression is, or we talk a little bit about med management and the cost benefit analysis. Am I going to take that medication if it's going to make me gain weight? And I have a story about that. I was given a medication and my weight went up just like within a week of me starting this pill. It's like my body decided to take every calorie I got and convert it to fat. And I was like, okay, what changed? My diet didn't. It was this medication. And I was able to go back to my doctor and say, I can't take this. I can't deal with the weight gain. I've struggled with my weight my whole life. I'm finally getting to a place where I'm comfortable with who I am in my body, but at the same time, I can't gain weight. It's not good for me. So we were able to have that discussion. But had I not brought that to my doctor's attention, they'd still be sending me my prescription for that, thinking that I was taking it. And what a waste of time, energy, and money. So, I think provider gives us that freedom to talk and to advocate for ourselves as providers, as individuals, as family members, that we don't necessarily always do. It makes a difference when a provider is aware of, maybe I come in today with a pain in my arm, but it's important for them to know I'm also a human being who has major depressive disorder, or I have schizophrenia. So you need to view me in light of the whole me, not just my arm that hurts, right? So it's taking your book knowledge of what these things are, and it gives you that extra piece of, remember why you got into this work, because you wanted to help people. Part of helping people is being compassionate and empathetic and being present when you talk with them. My hope for provider is that eventually we begin to see a systemic change in how providers engage with individuals with mental illness. So that's kind of my next on the boilerplate kind of research that I want to do, is how does this course, I know it impacts individual lives. I know it impacts organizations on some level, but what does that look like? Is there policy change within your organization to address these issues better? Is there a movement to bring additional support and resources in for your individuals with mental health concerns? So I want to see that bigger picture. There's no reason why this program can't change systems.
Yeah.
And that would be my ultimate bucket list.
Yeah. One of the other cool parts about this, if you're listening and thinking about provider, for the people, there's a lot of value for those that teach it too. And I've watched people who had, when their story is that they had extreme social anxiety, wouldn't leave the house, didn't ever talk in front of others, whatever, and they get involved in a NAMI course of some kind, asked to lead it. They step out of that box, they get some confidence, they get some kudos, they get some purpose in their life, especially if they're on disability. They get maybe some income from these classes, and they just grow and grow and grow, and it helps their recovery. And so, but back to what you said, Daryn, about people not telling you could recover. Not only can you recover, but this is a path to recovery for folks who have, if you're a peer in recovery, this is one of the paths to help you gain maybe other skills, other jobs, other opportunities. And just watching that is really cool too. So the team teaching has always been neat, because I never know, we always swap. You don't have, there is kind of a core group that I teach with a lot, but normally we're mixed around. And I think that's on purpose to get different voices and get people to know different people. So the team of 3 or to 5 is really interesting, because you never know who you're going to be with and who you get to know on a different level, and to be able to work together. And so it's been really just empowering to watch people in recovery, say, in families who have now moved to that advocacy phase that we talk about, being able to advocate strongly for their kids. And I mean, how many of our instructors do I know that are in front of the legislature now telling them the way it is about things, or working for national groups like TAC, like Leslie, that have taken, starting in one of these classes to like big things for advocacy, and really used it to hone their skills. And it's really cool to watch. So Jason, now that you've been teaching it, do you have a favorite story of maybe somebody you worked with, or some class that you've done that you thought was like the most impactful or the most interesting? Because I know you've done several now at lots of different locations. So what's been most interesting on your path?
Well, I think the most interesting is just how it helps as professionals as well, and family members, to just constantly remind yourself of how important recovery is, because I learn more teaching this course every time. Sometimes I feel guilty for that I'm learning more than participants are, because I just find it rejuvenating to go out and teach the course. I will tell you, some of the things I took away from stigma, I think are kind of the most, like, I've seen horribly stigmatizing things said in courses that I shouldn't say shocked me, but there's still such a strong stigma across professionals. One funnier thing was, looking at the medical hierarchy. And in one of our courses, there was a psychiatrist, somebody going to become a psychiatrist. They were talking about specialties. And so there was a podiatrist in the room, and the psychiatrist actually jumped up and down for joy, because psychiatry is one step above podiatry. And it was hilarious, because it's kind of the first time where you can kind of see this playing out, and I think it's for those moments that it makes the class so valuable.
I was in that training, Jason, and I believe that the podiatrist said, it's amazing what people will tell you while you're looking at their feet.
That's exactly right. And so, it's one of those moments that I'll always remember, because you don't think about the podiatrist needing to be an expert in mental health and being supportive and understanding those issues, but they actually go hand in hand, right? And so we think about all of the things, right? The medical issues, the complicated medical issues that go along with a lot of these medications. We think about diabetes. All of that stuff goes back to podiatry, and how people talk about a lot when you're looking at their feet. It's exactly right, Daryn. And so I have to say that was one of my biggest takeaways, because it was so unexpected.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Daryn, what else would you like to share about? You've taught this even more than we have. So when you're out and about, what are the crazy stories that you'd like to share about? Have there been like a group that you just were shocked or amazed about what you learned in that group, or how they've behaved?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to tell you about the partnership that we have with the Psychiatry Student Interest Group, PsychSign, which is the student group of the American Psychiatric Association, so the APA. we do this seminar, the provider seminar for each one of their regional organizations. And I think there are 7 or 8 regions. And it's always interesting to me, the students that come into the class that really want to engage with this material. Granted, there's a handful that are just like, okay, I'm doing this because I said I was going to do it, but I'm not coming on camera. You can't make me read. You can't make me talk. And there's 4 hours you'll never get back. But those students who really want to engage with the material and begin to share their stories, I think that always amazes me, that how our facilitators, our leader stories engage that I'm not alone. Everyone in the room on some level, we all know someone, or we are engaged with mental illness in some way, shape, or form. So I think those aha moments and those students going, wow, they never taught me this in school. I never got a taste of this. Those always kind of crack me up. And we do an exercise in the middle of the class that's kind of like our misinterpretations of normal behaviors, or how people perceive what we're saying or doing. And one of the stories that I just love, and I get to train with this person quite often, she talks about going to a appointment with her husband to see a psychiatrist, and they said, we're going to talk to him for a few minutes and then we'll bring you in. And she says, oh no, you fix him and we'll be fine. And that so clearly says to me as a provider, you really don't care. You don't see that there's a bigger issue than just his mental illness. There's communication, there's support. And for her to say that, I think as a provider, I would go, whoa, you know, but having heard that as a natural reaction to what was going on, that kind of puts things a little bit better perspective for me. So I love those kind of stories that people share. And sometimes they wind and ramble and then they, get to the point of what they have to say. But I enjoy the stories most of all. I enjoy watching people get it, those aha moments or those light bulbs. Podiatrist in that training, I still see his face and him saying that. We had another individual who was planning to be a surgeon, and she said, this course will make me a better surgeon.
Mm.
And I think
Yeah.
that's just really, really right on. It's
Yeah.
those participant comments that I really, really enjoy. And Jason, like you said, I get energized. I get jazzed up when I get to teach, when I get to present. Those are moments for me when I don't know, I kind of step into my shoes and be all you can be kind of moments. But I just really love being able to engage with people, talk to people, hear their stories, and then do this training that it opens me up, strengthens me. So there's the hearing the presentation and there's the doing the presentation. And it's NAMI is about relationship, right? Renee, I probably would have never met you or you, Jason, had we not been involved with NAMI and in provider. And I dare say that I could call either one of you and say, I'm in trouble, I need help, or I'm struggling today, I need help. And you both would be there. And that's the way it is with everyone that I've come across in NAMI. Everybody's here to support each other, and it's about the relationships that we build. So I'm thankful to be a part of that bigger circle, that bigger family.
Yeah, me too. So in addition to like the ideas earlier about the case studies about who else we would include in provider, are there other programs or other things that are going to be kind of coming from NAMI National? I don't know. Do you have any sneak peeks of anything we can know about that because I mean, this new provider manual was like provider manual number 4 for me, I think. And so I know when the new one comes out, I'm like, oh, there's something new. So is there something else new that's on the horizon we can know about? Or is it just we're going to have to stay tuned and put you link in the show notes for people to track it?
Well, I do know that we're working really hard to take the DMU process and platform and convert that into something that we can get out to additional schools and do some more academic training. So that's going to be coming on the horizon for provider in 2026, 2027. So I'm excited about that. We also, all of our programs are going through a revision. And one of the things that we did this last year was we hired an instructional design manager within the education team. So all of our classes are being put through a updated, modern kind of lens to how people learn, what people need to learn, and how we can better present our programs. We work with people from young folks, almost cradle to grave. And with parents, it is cradle to grave, right? So we work with a lot of different age groups, and we want to make our classes pertinent for every age group. We don't want to throw the seniors out for the youth, and we don't want to forget the youth because they'll be taking care of us seniors when we get there. So we want to make sure that we are able to get out and talk to everyone. Like the political scene we're in, everything is flexible, floatable, syncable. So, we just kind of all tie a knot and hang on and just keep doing what we need to do every day to make these programs better, more marketable, more engaging. So those are things that are coming down the pipe.
Oh, that's exciting. I love it. Jason, do you have any final thoughts before I go
Renee.
into
Well, I
recovering
do.
politicians?
I think about, and we'll put it in the show notes. If people want to learn more, where do we encourage them to go? Of course, we go to NAMI.org, to the national website, but that can also guide us back to our local state chapters, or even our local, affiliates beyond that. But I really, encourage people, if you like to learn more, or you want to get involved, get a hold of your local NAMI state entity, and have a conversation. I know certainly here in Iowa, the staff there, Ryan would go to coffee with anyone who sent him an email and said, hey, let's go out. I just want to learn more about what you all do. And I want to hear about this thing. Who would I need to talk to locally? Don't be afraid to do that, because there's a lot of people out there who would be more than willing to sit down with you and explain to you how you could get involved and what you could do. So let's just not forget that's kind of the call to action, right, Daryn? That there's
Absolutely.
opportunities. There's opportunities out there, and we encourage folks to get to know your local NAMI.
Absolutely. And Jason, with that, if you're interested in attending a NAMI provider session and you don't have one going on in your local affiliate or your state, you can also still look to see who else might be having them. So many of these are being done on Zoom digitally these days that, if you really want to go to a class, you can find a class. And if you ping into NAMI Iowa and Ryan and Maggie can't find you something, you know who they're going to reach out to? Me. Going to be emailing me and saying, hey, I've got somebody who wants to get into a provider class. So we work together. There's 49 affiliate offices and there's 660 or state offices, 49 state offices and 660 affiliates across the country. I think NAMI's got you covered. We're in Hawaii, Alaska, Puerto Rico. Some of our classes are taught internationally. So if you type in NAMI.org, you're going to find something somewhere that's going to be able to support you. And don't forget your 911 and 988 calls if you're in crisis.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Before we go today, I just want to remind everybody of the Recovering Politician Self-Care Policy of the Week. And it's a simple one, but it's ask for help. All of us provider folks out here, we're not very good at this. And then we get upset when other people don't ask us for help or listen to us when we want to give them advice. But we're not going to do a good job of this if we don't model asking for help and following those instructions ourselves. And so we have to be the model that we're looking for to help others. And so that's one of the awesome things about providers. I get as much help out of those classes, just like Jason says, as I put into them. And it's a two-way street, but I have to be willing to go first and to be willing to say, hey, I need this. And so just like Daryn was saying, we are a big relationship group here at NAMI, and we can reach out to anybody at any time for a connection or a suggestion or a referral or a network idea. And so, but you have to be able to say, hey, I need this, because people can't read our minds and they're not always going to know that we need something. And so that's a simple tip today, but it's really important and it ties into what we were talking about today. So today we really talked about provider, did a deep dive with our friend Daryn. So excited to get to talk to her and about the history of provider, who it's for, what it's all about, and then what the future could look like. So before we go, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. And if you do that and leave us a review, we'll send you a prize. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you soon.